You're listening to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
TDW was your very first project that you started up, correct?
Yeah. Well, it's like I would say that I was in bands and separate things before, but that didn't really take shape. You know what I mean? So I tend to see that with TDW in 2008, I released an album called The Haunts, and I kind of consider that my unofficial start as a musician, or like official start as a musician, because I actually released albums before that in 2006 and 2004. But that was literally just me making demos with little to no skill whatsoever and burning it on a CD and then telling people like, this is my album, you know, and I had no fucking clue. So I tend to say that 2008 is the official start of my career. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, like, even for me, like, TDW was the first. Well, that was the first project of yours that I really found first, because it was with specifically The Day the Clock Stopped, which actually became one of my favorites from 2020, which is kind of funny that a Dark as Shit album was one of the best albums that I listened to in 2020. That's an indicator of my personality for sure. But,
are you okay? I think that is the main question.
That is still to be determined, but I guess my question is, that given that you've been doing this since 2008, what made you want to actually get into it? Was it something that you like? Have you been writing music since you were a child? Was there a point when you're like, I want to be a rock star? What was the turning point for you?
That's a good one. I think in my case, it was really that when I was a kid, I actually didn't want to be a musician until I was like 14 or something. I actually wanted to be a video game designer. I was that nerdy kid that was, I was that nerdy kid that was addicted to basically everything video game related. And the thing is that it was the weirdest kind of thing that when I was 14 years old, I was still kind of chasing that dream and drawing all these concept art things and working on mostly RPGs because I'm a nerd and like a horrible one. And What happened was I was actually working on a game, and at a certain point with a program called RPG Maker. For those of you who lived in the late 90s, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like that was archaic as heck, but it needed music, and I figured, how hard could it be? So I kind of just set out, and I knew a few people. That
seems to be the repeating question in your life.
Yeah, how hard could it be? How
hard can it be?
Yeah, and every time you start something, you realize that it's like climbing a mountain with a fucking toothbrush, and you're like, oh, shit, that's what it is. But then I'm also kind of what it was. I had friends, or my sister had a friend who was making music, and he was doing like hip hop, totally different stuff. But I asked him, he was a really nice guy. I was like, okay, so how does one music? Oh, sensei. And then he gave me some software. He gave me Fast Tracker. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but that was like in the 90s, that was huge.
Fast Tracker, that sounds familiar. I've heard the name, but I'm also not really a 90s kid. I was born like 97. So for me, that's
okay, there we go. No, it's like, but just for your reference, Fast Tracker was like one of the few programs that most was used in electronic music and hip hop, etc. to just put samples together. You had like a spreadsheet, you put your samples in there and you'd write a song. That's what it was. And I was basically, when he explained it to me, I was like, oh, okay, I think I can do that. So then I just started making these tunes, which obviously were mostly off key and it made no sense whatsoever. But I tried to write as much as I could by ear. And when I was 14, I was like huge already into prog metal, but I was also very much into power metal. So I wrote a lot of songs that literally started with a kick drum, just going, and then, okay, that's my drum. And then that's Rhapsody, Stradivarius, that kind of stuff.
Oh my god!
And that was my jam when I was 14, man. I was the biggest nerd. Still am. I guess I'm just better. No, I'm not better at hiding it now. Who am I kidding? But whatever, man. But the thing is that I wrote all that stuff basically with no knowledge of what I was actually doing. But I did it all by ear, and obviously the first couple of demos were complete shit. But as it evolved, I heard people say like, this doesn't even sound that bad. Like, this is a catchy melody. It just stays with me. I was like, okay. And I was literally just doing it for that video game project. I was not at all aspiring to be a musician myself. And then when I was then at a certain point I was working on a game, and then I realized, hey, I actually really like this music stuff. I actually like it way more than working on all this video game stuff. Maybe that's a telltale sign that I got to change my direction here. And I think that the real kicker was the moment that I got a, believe it or not, my first girlfriend, her mom was a photographer for a metal magazine, and she had like this whole collection of all sorts of stuff, and she played Evolution by Symphony X.
That sounds like a cool mom.
That she pretty cool, but she still is a really cool person, and I'm still in touch with her. But it was like I heard Evolution by Symphony X. I always said to say like I'm not even that much of a Symphony X fan anymore these days, but the first time I heard that, and then like the song kicks in, and those huge soaring vocals come in, and the orchestras and everything, I was like, oh shit, this is what I want. I want 20 of those, please. Like that's what it felt like. And I think that was the moment that I realized, like, okay, if I want to get into this music thing, then this is probably more my calling, between brackets. And obviously, looking back on it, as a kid, I always used to sing. I was raised in a household that always had, there was either Queen, Toto, or something blaring through the speakers that I would sing along to without me realizing it. Pink Floyd, all that stuff was already going on around my house. So it's not a complete stretch of the imagination that I was musically interested, but it's just that it took me relatively long to get to that point, because I know that there's people saying, yeah, I started making prog and I started playing guitar when I was 6 years old. And honestly, when I was 14, I couldn't play anything. Like if you gave me a keyboard, it was like, it didn't make any sense. But I just programmed it and did it by ear and just figured it out as I went, really.
And that sounds about right. I mean, I know when I started, for me, when I started writing music on my own, it was like 17 years old. I just picked up the guitar for the first time, and I was like, and a buddy of mine was like, you should join the band. I'm like, I've been playing guitar for like 1 month, not even. Maybe, actually, I think I started playing that day when he was like, you should join our industrial metal band. I'm like, I don't even know. yeah. Big brain. I mean, when I was speaking actually with Jay, that Aussie metal guy, I was telling him this. He's like, well, if it was a punk band, that's fine. It was not a punk band. I was like, I wasn't even into punk. I was more like, excuse me, my speed was more like stuff like Motionless in White, Periphery, that kind of thing. So, I'm fucking like, I can do this. And
it's like, also, but that is so Periphery as a reference. Holy shit. It's like, I haven't touched the guitar ever, and I want to do that. Okay, good luck, buddy.
It's adorable looking back on little me, just like, oh, that's cute, buddy. That's cute. So, oh my God. But yeah, no, but that was the thing. Like, I just started, at that point, that's when I realized I was into songwriting, because I was like, I'm kind of enjoying writing random notes in this fucking tab program I had on my computer.
Was it Guitar Pro? Did you have the cracked Guitar Pro? Or which one did you use?
I have Guitar Pro now, but back then I was using Tux Guitar, which is like a Linux
I actually have
version.
Tux Guitar right here, because I like my guitar players I work with all have Guitar Pro, and perfectly fine. But for me, it's like, the amount of time that I actually spend working in tabs is so I tend to just be like, okay, I can do it in Tux Guitar as well, and then I'll just send them those files, and they can make it all awesome or whatever. It's fine. I guess.
Yeah, but that is definitely like with Tux Guitar. At that point, I ended up upgrading to Guitar Pro eventually. But that was where I started with songwriting too. Is like just fucking dicking around with the computer software and hoping for the best.
Right.
I had no idea what I was doing either. I look back on like the old tabs I still have on my computer, and I'm like, what key is this in?
There are no keys where we are going, Tom.
There's no keys whatsoever. The beats weren't even consistent either. It's like, if I ever get a chance to release any of these old demos, oh dear God, the world will end. But it was...
So actually, what would be interesting, because in my case, is like what I just described, is like what I wrote was relatively straightforward, and just like, but what you're describing is like, if you're actually able to turn this into something playable, then it might be the most progressive shit ever. Because there is no steady BPM. Like,
there's no steady anything. It's great.
Yeah, it should go all over the place, man.
It could just go fucking nuts. And that's the beautiful part.
Just have a guy throat singing backwards over it, and you got yourself a new prog genre. Let's go.
There you go.
You just listened to MR